afternoon, everybody. So Craig Stobie, I head up our global strategic sectors at Domino. So I've been there 28 years doing various different things, but over 20 years doing barcodes and machine-readable codes. So, Bram?
Yeah, my name is Bram Broeks. I'm working for GS1 in the Netherlands, the company behind the barcode. I'm responsible for our relationships, both our members, but also our partners. See if this works. Yeah. So small introduction about GS1, just one slide. We are a not-for-profit organization. It's the company behind the barcode. We are a global organization in 150 countries, which 116 member organizations. And if you see on the slide, every day 10 million barcodes, 10 billion barcodes, it's an amazing number, are scanned every day. And that barcode is going to be replaced by the 2D barcode. So it's a huge operation from our side, but also from the industry side and for parties like Domino's. And we're an open standards company.
Perfect, that's great. I'll borrow that if I may. Thank you. So a little bit about Domino for those that don't know us. So we were formed in 1978. What do? We help our customers mark, identify products, addressing in an industrial environment at real time. So lots of dynamic codes. More and more, though, as Bram says, is we're seeing this evolution. Actually, what we are helping is our customers to link through product identification the physical world and the digital world. And the 2D data matrix and QR codes are a portal between those two universes, and we're seeing that accelerate. So when I first started, many, many years ago at Domino, this is the sort of thing that we would print on the left-hand side. It was a simple, best before date, human readable. I think 1980, the freshness legislation came in, and so products, it was a step change in evolution. And then we've seen a number of initiatives come in with increased traceability. Eggs is a perfect example of a product that was being diverted and was open to counterfeit. So they themselves and the industry decided to increase their traceability. So a lot more granular, so you could see where your egg was from. And then, of course, we've seen with a number of sectors, we've seen a move to what we call Batcher 1, so full serialization. Where if you look at things like pharmaceuticals, absolutely every single packet of medicine across Europe has its own ID, and there's some huge benefits for patient safety with that. And then, of course, at the other end here, full traceability. We're seeing more and more of this come in. Initially, it was in high-value products that could be open to counterfeit, things that were volume controlled, things that were taxation products, fiscally managed, things like tobacco. So again, there was a requirement to make sure not just the product, but all of the levels of packaging were all individually serialized and the relationship between them was known. We're actually seeing that now cascade into lots of products, lots more high value and high volume products. So what's driving it? There's three key strategies, three initiatives that are really accelerating these changes that we're seeing, and it really is accelerating. It really is a step change. The first one is the circular economy. So lots of people, and I notice out in the exhibition hall, people talking about the circular economy. But what does that mean? In simple terms, it's moving from the take, make, throw away ecosystem that we've had to a much more, if possible, remove. If you can't remove, reduce. If you can't reduce, at least reuse. And if all else fails, absolutely make sure you're recycling. So we're seeing some really good legislation come in. South Korea, if anybody's aware of that legislation. The removal of labels on water bottles. So that's now law. So in South Korea, Domino is printing a QR code on all of the closures, which means that there's no longer a label on any of those bottles. So some loads of good initiatives coming in that we're seeing, and things like DDRS, etc. Again, a big part of that. The other one we're seeing is the digital economy. And the pandemic, one of the upsides, there was few, but one of the upsides of the pandemic was the acceleration of the digital economy. A huge step forward. It moved us forward probably 10 years in a couple of years. There's something called Moore's Law that you might have heard of, and this is that big data used to be the premise of big, huge multinationals. It's not anymore. Actually, anybody with a computer, anybody who can do programming and the computing power of people and small businesses has improved so much that actually the use of digital information is open to everybody. So this is enabling a huge amount of outcomes. And these two are interconnected. Actually, one feeds the other. The digital economy is helping the circular economy and vice versa. And we're seeing things develop with things like machine-readable codes that allow you to manage not just the sort of retailer to consumer space, but actually before that, farm to fork, and also after that, so things like recycling schemes, DDRS I mentioned. The other one that's driving it, and Bram's already mentioned it, is this move supported by GS1 to the use of machine-readable codes, particularly QR codes. It's fantastic for us because we've got one standard, it's interconnected, it's open source, as Bram says, it's not for profit. You know, there's no reason why you wouldn't use GS1. So again, this is underpinning both those two initiatives going forward. Thank you, Bram.
Thank you, Craig. So 50 years ago, we introduced the 1D barcode. And this was supporting what Craig was saying, the linear economy. Our over 2 million members were asking, how can we support the circular economy? We can't support that with the 1D barcode. We need an additional one. We need a 2D barcode for that, or the QR code powered by GS1, to drive that circular economy, to connect where we 50 years ago, where GS1 was really powerful in terms of retail, connecting with producers. We see that we're also now connecting with the upstream world, with the raw material producers as well, but also to the consumer and the post-consumer part with the QR code. So what makes it then? Everybody knows the QR code, right? And there's already a lot of QR codes on packaging of the products. The thing, and that's good news. And I think with COVID, the scanning of QR code got a tremendous boost. Everybody now is aware of, hey, if I see a QR code, I'm going to scan it. But the barcode wasn't scannable by a consumer, for example. So now, with the move towards the QR code of GS1, also the consumer can scan the barcode or the 2D barcode. Much more than that. So a regular barcode or QR code, you're referring to one product page. If you now scan a QR code, you go to the product page of most likely the brand of that product. With the QR code of GS1, introduced by now, but readily available by the end of 2027, you can connect to many more sources. So you can refer not only to the product page of that product, but you can also refer to, for example, sustainability data. You can also refer to a certification. So, for example, if there's a Fairtrade logo on the product, you can also refer to the Fairtrade certificate. And you can also verify, is that certificate really issued? Is it still valid? Et cetera, et cetera. But you can also refer to packaging information, for example. If you go to the grocery and you want to buy this cucumber, there's a plastic seal with it. Why is it there? Or what is the cost of this versus the benefit of food loss and waste, for example? So there's more interaction that you can do. The other thing, that's the third topic, is you can also add variable data to the QR code. So you can add the batch number, or you can add a serial number, or you can add the best before date to that QR code. So I think that's very powerful. So we sort of discussed this. So what does this also mean for packaging and packaging material? We see that there's a lot of identification of products, but there's also a very big movement to identification of packaging material. So identifying the package, but also storing the data around the package and share that data around the package. So legislation in each and every country, what Craig was referring to in terms of recycling, for example, there's legislation for that, and there's also taxing accordingly. So there's a lot of initiatives that we store package information in our databases to share with the retailers so that they can submit their tax report, for example. So this is a legislation perspective, but we can also have the benefits in terms of communication to the consumer. So this is the challenge that we're all facing, how to get the package information identified, stored in the databases so that we can share it. And now, I think a regular retailer needs about 5 months with maybe 3 FTE to collect all the package information, and we want to automate that, simplify it through our systems. The other advantage that we hear a lot from marketing, but also product and package people, is that on the left side you see a lot of information needs to be stored on a single package. If you look at the QR code, you can have only that single point of access and share all that information that's now on the package.
Thank you, Bram. So with one of our collaboration partners recently, we did a survey. So this is from February this year. And it was 3,000 brand owners that were surveyed. You can see here what's the level of interest in packaging, and you can see that nearly 80% of brand owners are interested in adding some sort of variable data carrier. And actually, nearly 90% are planning a connected packaging campaign this year. So whilst this is reassuring, it's also, there's still a lot of the way to go. So it's fantastic to see that people are doing this. The key thing for me is when the step change will be, because it talks about campaigns. So we're talking about lots of brands doing campaigns. What we're moving towards is what's called always on. So actually the QR might appear, or it might be a promotional or regional initiative, and actually it just becomes business as usual. So actually this is where we're starting to see lots of products and consumers also expecting that level of interaction they can get with their packaging. So all sounds good. Unfortunately, because I'm a bit of a grumpy northerner, we're going to do a bit of a reality check, because actually just moving to a QR code isn't enough. Actually, people need to think about what they're putting in that QR code. So fantastic. We're seeing lots of brands saying, do you know what? I've moved a step forward because I'm moving from a linear barcode to a two-dimensional barcode, and I'm going to put my GT in, so the sort of information that would normally live in a linear barcode. And some brands are saying, do you know what? I'm also going to add a URL. So actually, you know what the product is, and you can go to my landing page and interact with my landing page, and I know who you are, and that's fantastic. But there's very little benefit. We've seen a brand recently who's added these two data elements into a QR code. It will take you to the landing page. It will tell you what the product you've got is. If you want to know if your product's expired, you have to look at the human readable. If you want to know if your product has been recalled, you have to look at a manual lookup table to see whether the lot number that you've got, that you've looked at from the human readable, is on there. Okay, that might work for some consumers, but for those that are vision impaired, that's not going to happen. So again, why wouldn't we just add in some more? So if you're going to put your data elements in, put the expiry in, and all of a sudden, waste management within the factory walls, waste management for consumers suddenly becomes a lot easier. The lot number. Why wouldn't you put the lot number in? Think of a universe where instead of recalling 10,000 or 1 million products, you know exactly where that product is because the lot number's encoded within the QR code. And then, of course, ideally, why wouldn't you put all 5 data elements in there? I mean, if you're going to put data elements in, let's get them all in. Because if you're putting all 5 data elements in there, it unlocks a huge amount of use cases right across the supply chain and beyond. So from manufacturing all the way through logistics and distribution, right through to the retailer, for the consumer, and as we talked about with things like DDRS, actually beyond the consumer. You can use it for recycling purposes, you can use it for waste management, you can use it for reuse. We've got some examples with brands where we are using a QR code to track the Big Debbie Johns of water, because we can reuse them 25 times. So actually we know how many times they've been round, because they've got a serial number, so they've all got an identity. And the other word of caution is, people can cheat. So they get a bit carried away, and they think about all of the use cases, well actually they think about all of the data they might stuff into this code. The one thing that we often say is, think about the outcomes that you're trying to achieve, and then work back. Don't start with the product, and can the product print QR codes? Yes, great, I'm going to print some. Actually think about who you're trying to impact, what those use cases look like, who are the user groups, is it the consumers, is it the retailers, is it all of them? That will then help you build the data model that you need. But then when you try and get that data model into a QR code on packaging, think about these 5 elements, and these are really important. The first 2 often is where we see people cut corners. So they say, well, actually, what we can do is we'll just make the cell size smaller, or we'll just reduce the error correction. That will really impact the success of any project, because guess what? They're the 2 areas that will impact readability really quickly. So we always say, don't cut corners with the first 2, because that's going to be a long-term problem for you. If you look at the next 2, packaging real estate and physical shape, Bram's alluded to it earlier, that can take years to change. So actually, if you're trying to put a QR code that's this big on a piece of packaging real estate that's this big, think about that. Data content. Much as is important to make sure it's a data-rich content, make sure that you're thinking, and we're always saying this to brands, think about the way that data is constructed. If you're going to do a serial number, think about how long that serial number is. There's some really clever ways to get a unique but small serial number. Think about your batch code. Do you need a huge batch code? Think about your URL. Do you really need a 32-character URL? Quishing is something that people are nervous about, which is phishing using QR codes, but there's a way to still have a small URL and still make sure it's protected. So again, it's just about, and this is what we say all the time to brands, think about these factors and what the data is and how it's built together. The key thing is, it's not just pain. And this chart, again, it's illustrative, I'm not going to go through it. But actually, the difference between brands and people deploying QR codes who get value from it and those that don't is generally down to some basic factors. The cost is about the same. They don't spend any more. They just start earlier. So the ones that are really getting the benefit over here on the right are probably the early adopters, and they'll have trialed it. There's a simple Pareto with anything like this. 80% of your production lines and 80% of the products will take 20% of the time. It's the 20% of products that take 80% of the time, and they're the ones you should start with first, the difficult ones, the challenging lines. But if you get it right, if you involve all the different stakeholders, there is benefit. And just to summarize that very quickly, if you're going to go to an always-on project, not just a campaign, it is about a change of behavior. And the key thing is it will impact every aspect of the business. We often know when a project's going to be successful because we can see the job titles of the people in the room. If you've got a production person only or an engineering person only, it's not going to end well. If you've got engineering, production, packaging, logistics, legal, IT, brand marketing, you're in a good rate of success. Obviously, I've talked about a lot. The use of interoperable systems, GS1, is fundamental. And again, developing your use case, thinking about this top one on the top right, clear requirements about what you're aiming to achieve. So don't just put a QR code on and say, that's it, job done. Think about the outcomes you're trying to influence. Work back. That'll build the data code, and that'll help you make sure the project's a success, because any project is only as good as the worst bit, whether it's the product handling, the packaging real estate, the data content, the way that it's been put together. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are a huge number of opportunities for each and everybody. Whether you're in food safety, from inventory management, on traceability, if you're in marketing or sustainability or in logistics, there are huge opportunities out there. I loved your staircase, Craig, where you say make steps in the maturity, but also make steps in the value that you want to unlock. Start indeed with what are the use cases that really drive the benefits, either as a packager or as a brand owner or even as a retailer. But I think the ask for the audience here is start now. Whether you want to start with the first maturity step, adding the GTIN to the QR code, or even go one step further to really try to grasp an additional use case. I think that the ask of us to you all is start, and we can help you to get started. And we need very good and nice examples, because we also just started. And I mentioned the transition date of 2027, but we need good use cases to show the industry what the value is that we can all bring together. So our teams of both Domino's and GS1 are open to support you in setting those steps.
Thank you, Bram. So we talked a little bit about use cases, and it sounds great, doesn't it? Theoretical, there's loads of benefits. So how can I stand here so confidently and say, actually, there's huge benefits? Because Domino is doing it already. Actually, if you are a Domino customer, we've deployed, as you can see here, an example I stole from our stand downstairs. All of our consumables, all of our spares have a GTIN. We have a QR code on them. And if you scan that QR code, whether it's an ink or a part, it'll give you the user manual. It will give you all of the information for your local contacts. It will give you training information. It'll tell you how to reorder it. It will also tell you the expiry date. It will tell you the lot number. So all of these things we're doing already. And this isn't a campaign. This is always on. So not only are we learning from the sectors we've been working in for 20 years with machine-readable codes like aerospace and life sciences and others, actually, we're our own best use case. And our customers are benefiting from this every single day, and we're learning, and we're able to then reuse those lessons elsewhere.